This is Josh Reeves, and you're listening to the Mile High Church podcast. Hey, in March, I'm starting a new class. What do The Wizard of Oz, It's a Wonderful Life, and The Princess Bride all have in common? Well, they're all films based on incredible books, but they're also all part of the American religion, or what I'm calling the Great American Myths. Learn more about who we are and our spiritual journey through these great, iconic films of American history. Check out more on milehighchurch.org.
Glory. Oh, well, it's so great to be here with you today. I want to talk about oneness. My title is all about the embrace of oneness, living in and as oneness. And I will admit, sometimes when I go to approach a message, I look at it and I think that I must have something called sermon deja vu or something like that. Because I feel like, well, I've talked about that before. I've said that in a talk before. And I know that I've talked to my ministerial colleagues sometimes who are supporting other centers and even the ones here. And we often joke about that our job really here on Sunday mornings is to talk about the same thing 52 different ways. And so I get it. And at the same time, there's always a freshness and a depth that can come if we're willing to continue to explore such an important topic. And oneness is an important topic for us in this faith tradition because it is a pillar. Oneness is a pillar of our teaching. We're not the only teaching or the only faith tradition that has oneness as its pillar. There are many, many faiths, many articulations of different philosophies and notions about how the universe works, and yet oneness is a really, really important one. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, talks about it a lot. It's a core part of his teachings. I don't know if many people realize this, but his main work that he wrote that we use a lot here is called The Science of Mind. And it's a fairly thick book, and often we'll use it in classes, and many of us own a Science of Mind. We call it the textbook. And the one that most of us have has a publishing date of 1938. The truth is that Ernest Holmes, in his 30s, published that book originally 100 years ago about now, in 1926. We call that the original textbook. And what happened, as I know happens for a lot of us who write books, right? We want to go back and change them and update them. I'm looking at an author in the front row who I know is doing that right now. Changing and updating our work as we grow and evolve. And so in 1938, he published another version, and that's the most common one that we use. When asked about why he did that, he said he just felt he wasn't as clear as he wanted to be in the original text. However, the original text is an interesting one to read, and my husband Ken and I have been reading it page by page in our morning practice for a while now and keep coming up with interesting nuggets. And one of them that we found is regarding oneness. Ernest Holmes says to us, "It is well to remember that the enlightened in every age have taught that back of all things there is one unseen cause. In studying the teachings of the great thinkers, we find that a common thread runs through all, the thread of unity. There is no record of any deep thinker of any age who taught duality." That might sound a little judgmental, huh? But he is pointing to the reality that people who really begin to, I'd say, think deeply or delve deeply into the essence, the essential nature of the soul or the spirit of life, usually come out of that place feeling connected in oneness, feeling a relief of the burden of duality. Duality, of course, being the notion that there's you and then me, or this and then that, or God and then me. Rather, oneness is an acknowledgement that it's all really the same stuff. And mystics throughout the ages have been teaching this Since the beginning of time, since the beginning of humans actually scribbling anything down, be it pictures or writings, these moments of feeling as though we're plummeted into this connectedness of all life that can come at any moment, sometimes expectedly and sometimes completely unexpectedly. When I say expectedly, it means that some people are searching for it and going for it and praying about it and meditating, and others find themselves, I know as I have many times, suddenly in the midst of it. When I was younger, growing up here in Colorado, I found many times just being so connected through nature. I remember one time being on a ministerial student retreat. I was still a student, and we were up in the mountains, and I wandered off by myself for a hike and came over a hill, and the colors were changing down in the valley, and it just hit me so hard, the magnificence of the beauty, and suddenly Michelle was not there anymore. There was something that happened that merged me with the beauty of nature. And I just stayed there as long as I could. I feel like I didn't even breathe. I just was so stunned by it. And I could feel the edges of me being blurred away. And suddenly I was just connected to the all that is. And in that space, everything was amazing and beautiful. And I could feel the connection of all life. It was such an honor. And I felt that a number of times throughout my life, here and there. And it's so amazing. So when I read mystics talking about it, I can go, yeah. And I completely admit I can't seem to live there all the time. I can't seem to have that feeling all the time. And so I seek it out. I chase it in my meditation practices. I chase it and look for it in experiences, and I welcome it. I'm always saying to myself, I welcome that experience because it is so peaceful. It is so profound. It is so important. And I'm not the only one, and I don't think I'm special, because I think that feeling, that experience is available to all beings everywhere. And I'm guessing many of us have had it through different experiences. And we can say, wow, that's really cool. And we can talk about it in classes and philosophize about it and compare and contrast our experiences. And sometimes, because I can't seem to live there, and we can't seem to live there, from the space of truly solving human problems and looking at the world of effect and the things that happen in our individual lives and our collective lives, we can also fall into, well, great, you got some oneness. What about that problem over there? What are you going to do about that from that space? What's so cool about that? And we can start to diminish it and start to push it aside and start to think it's not very relevant and it doesn't really matter. And it's like thoughts and prayers. It's like, well, that's great, but how does that really help us all to end poverty or solve world wars or create a connectedness instead of divisiveness? How does that really help? And I'm here to say that it does, but we have to find our way back into that place, not only philosophically, but from a place of power and connectedness. It can seem really woo-woo, I admit. Really woo-woo. I like to call myself Reverend Dr. Woo-woo. Today, maybe I'll just be Reverend Dr. Woo. One woo, maybe not two. Because I want to talk about the practical side of oneness. While it might seem as though it's the most impractical woo-woo thing, big deal, what is true about it is that science tells us that it's real. Physics has been telling this for many years. As we talk about the notion of everything and everyone broken down into energy, it's all the same stuff. Just vibrating at different speeds, such that some of the stuff is solid, some of it's less solid, such as oxygen, But at the molecular level, it's all the same. So some physicists would say that's the energy that binds and connects all of life. It's the one thing that is running through everything and everyone, every condition, everything solid, everything not solid, everything that exists, the same stuff. And not only that, more modern physics, has been talking a lot about this concept that I just love called quantum entanglement, where we can take two particles, separate them, and put them at vast distances. And if you do one thing to one particle, the other one feels it. The other one responds. That distance doesn't have anything to do with it. I looked up quantum entanglement on Google, and here's my favorite explanation of it. This is one of the most striking examples of interconnectedness in physics. When two or more particles become entangled, they remain connected in such a way that the state of one instantaneously influences the state of the other, regardless of the distance separating them. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance. It's very official, isn't it? This phenomenon defies classic notions of locality and strongly suggests a fundamental, non-local connection throughout the universe. Last year when I was here talking just a little bit about this, I suggested to us that here's what this means from a practical standpoint. We came here to Mile High Church today, and we're all sitting in this very room, and some of us might be sitting out on the edges alone and thinking we're not connected to the people over here, but because of quantum entanglement, we are forever connected with one another. When we leave here today, we will be forever connected with this one group that showed up at Mile High Church on 2/22 at the 10 o'clock service. And therefore, if we allow ourselves to dance in the oneness that connects us all, we might leave here and feel a little bit of anxiety or fear or a little sense of not totally centered and think it's ours when really it belongs to that guy over there. Or there might be somebody over in here who has a complete mystical experience during the prayer that Reverend Steve did, or during a song, or during a moment, has a complete aha moment. And then all of a sudden somebody over here has an aha moment and thinks it's theirs alone. It's not. We're connected. And we're always connected to every being on this planet. Therefore, we have the capacity to influence. That's what we believe prayer is. We don't believe that prayer is, hey, God, make sure that guy over there has a mystical experience. That's not it at all. We believe what prayer is that we're acknowledging that we are quantum entanglement in form. And therefore, if I think of the particle that exists as Dr. Barry, hi, Dr. Barry, and I send a prayer of love and light to Dr. Barry, that he can feel it, even if I'm on the other side of the planet. And that it can have impact, that it could uplift, that it could support. At the same time, if I send, and I never would do this, Dorothy, a negative thought to beautiful Dorothy there, a thought of judgment, a thought of disconnect, that Dorothy has the capacity to feel that. And that all of that is moving through me and impacts my whole system too, because whatever I put out becomes a part of my cells. So the question then becomes, what are we putting out? What are we sending out into the world towards other people, towards our own bodies, towards the condition of our own lives? If we are quantumly entangled, we are in this together. And so how do we deal with that in a practical way? Powerful, powerful question. If we live from this truth, if we practice this truth, what might we do? I found a reel, a little film, a brief film the other day on social media from a gentleman who lives here in Colorado. His name is Ken Wilber. Many believe he is a modern mystic. I've got a picture of Ken there. He's been teaching and writing books. He's got a stack of books. He talks about integral philosophy, the connectedness of all life. And this reel captivated me. And I've watched it over and over since I found it. And here's what he was contemplating. It's just a brief couple-minute reel. But he's talking about the apparent gap between the human and the divine, and how we all have the capacity, as I've been suggesting, to experience that profound oneness and connection with all life. And that in that place, when we do experience that, the absolute, there's nothing wrong with the universe or the world here. Now, people sometimes are rejecting that because they say, well, that's spiritual bypass. And I get it. When you're in pain or discomfort or upset, you can't jump there too fast. You got to deal with that human experience. And yet this realm is still available. And at some point, the question can become, how would I be with my brokenheartedness or my pain or my concerns about the world through this lens? It still has value, but we sometimes want to reject it. And at the same time, he talks about this human experience that can be so painful. We witness the suffering of our loved ones, witness our own suffering, witness the suffering of our fellow humans in different parts of the world. And it's hard to make sense of it. It's hard to be okay with it. And he suggests that the more awake we are to this realm, the more we feel this realm. That means the more we are awake to the absolute connectedness of all life, the more we feel the joy and the bliss of human living and the suffering. Some of us think that we're abnormal because the suffering bothers us so much, because we have anxiety, because we can feel it all and it just can feel overwhelming. What Ken is suggesting to us, though, is that the more awakened to the divine life we are, the more we feel all that, and that's how it was meant to be. And stop trying to reject this. That leads, he didn't say this, but I'm going to say it, that's what leads to depression. We're not meant to reject this human realm. We're not meant to be here on earth and only live in the oneness goo of life. So as I watch this reel over and over, he talks about even in this realm, there's the notion, the Buddhist notion of samsara, which is the being born, suffering, dying, and being born again, and how this gets really profound the more connected to the divine you are. And as I watched this reel at one point, I said, I think what we have to do is mind the gap. I'm in the gap right now. I'm standing physically on this speaker's thrust, trying to demonstrate standing in the gap. And when I say mind the gap, the word mind, Ernest Holmes, when he would speak about mind, he would often capitalize it to mean God. To mind the gap means to pay attention to the apparent disparities and the places where we want to fall into separation. And here's what I've been wondering as I've watched that reel. It feels to me and looks to me as though the propensity to fall into the trap of separation and divisiveness is getting wider and wider. And we could say, well, it's because those politicians won't agree with each other and won't work together. We could say it's, well, those faith traditions won't work together. Those nations won't work together. Those families won't work together. The system won't work with people. You could come up with all sorts of excuses, but what if the first cause of all this divisiveness is that we won't mind the gap? We keep choosing. We keep wanting to go over here and be away from it all and not look at it, that's not what this part is for. That's not what oneness is about. It's not about denial. It's not about I'll just meditate all day long and not have to look at any of the discomfort. And it's not about being over here going, it's all whole, complete, and perfectly messed up. And I'm going to tell you all about it all the time. I think it's about bridging the gap. Finding a way to be the bridge in life to move forward and backwards and be in both realms. Now, Ken Wilber says he doesn't know anybody that has ever been able to bridge that gap. I don't know if I agree with him. I feel like maybe it's possible that Jesus was a being on this planet that could bridge that gap. It might be that Buddha was able to bridge that gap. Gandhi? There's probably a lot of them that we never heard about, that have never been written about in books, that have escaped the media, who've been able to bridge the gap. I don't think it's impossible, but it takes a willingness to do the work. One of Ken Wilber's quotes that I just love, he says, "I have one major rule. Everybody is right." More specifically, everybody, including me, has some important pieces of truth, and all of those pieces need to be honored, cherished, and included in a more gracious, spacious, and compassionate embrace. We talk about the loss of civil discourse, the loss of people listening to each other, the loss of respecting each other. That's when we're not bridging the gap, and all of us can fall into it. We may not fall into it at the big picture level, but we might fall into it in our work life as we're constantly not being respectful towards someone and gossiping and being disrespectful. We get to watch how we are falling short and maybe contributing to the divisiveness that we say we don't want. We say we want solutions. We say we want peace. We say we want the glory, but we keep feeding this. And so how can we begin to bridge that gap, really, and live in, as, and from that oneness in a more powerful way? Over here, I get it. In this place of oneness, when I've been there, and Ken Wilber even says this absolute part of the trap of it is it's easy to just go, because it's true, we don't like hearing this, but everything is in divine right order. Every soul is where they're supposed to be. Everything is unfolding as it is unfolding. And there's peace in that. There's peace in that. But it's that classic thing where I go there and I meditate and I'm full of that, and I get in my car and I go to drive to church to do my ministry job, and somebody cuts me off, and what a jerk they are. And I'm in the human experience, lost it. So I have some suggestions for how we can bridge that gap today. First of all, spiritual practice, of course. Spiritual practice. That is the doorway that many people have found into this realm. And this realm can be very nurturing and supportive of our journey, absolutely. And the trap is in place that I just gave the example of. The minute I walk out of my little oneness bubble, I am prone to the human experience of judgment and separation. Because that judgment and separation, even of that jerk who cut me off, that's duality. And when I have given into duality from the quantum entanglement viewpoint, I have fallen into the trap of adding to that energy it's not just my world, it's not just my life, it's impacting that person that I sent those judgments towards, and it's feeding the beast, isn't it? It's feeding the beast of separation, it's feeding the beast of anger, it's feeding the beast of divisiveness, it's feeding the beast of a lack of respect. But when I've learned to bridge that gap, when I'm really able, when I've really been impacted by my spiritual practice and I go out into my world and something like that happens, I can have a boundary about it. It's not that I can say, oh, well, that was cool. How cool that they cut me off. Yay. But at the very least, I can have peace about it. How I've gotten peace about it when I'm in that place, I can say, yeah, I've done that too accidentally a few times to people. I'm going to choose compassion in this moment. Bless you on your day and let them go forward. So it's spiritual practice. But what I have been finding for myself lately is that as I get more activated in this human realm in ways that I don't want to be activated, it's not enough some of those days just to do my spiritual practice in the morning and then let that be it. I was talking to the folks in our prosperity workshop last week about doing spiritual practice every few hours sometimes, which may seem like a lot, but boy, it sure works for me. I even set up on my in my little to-do app a bunch of affirmations. They pop up every 2 hours on my phone and on my iWatch. And I know when I first started doing it, I'd take a deep breath because I'd get the notification and I'd stop and I'd be sitting there looking at my watch like this, and someone around me would be like, what, are you concerned about the time? No. My husband might say, is everything okay? Yep. I just needed a moment to read my affirmation and get recentered. I don't know about you. I need it more than one a day to bridge that gap successfully and to keep bridging it. And when I see something that disturbs me, spiritual practice, back to centeredness. Again, with the intention of saying, how can I see that which is currently disturbing me through the eyes of oneness? That person who's disturbing me, that news story that's disturbing me. How can I see it through the eyes of oneness? Which usually is about, as Ken Wilber says, some level of how can I see with compassion? How can I send love to that situation rather than just be angry about it and then walk away and tell everybody how horrible it is? What am I building? Quantum entanglement. Do I want more of what I'm seeing or do I want less? If I want less, I've got to change my ways. So spiritual practice throughout my day. The next thing I have to do, I think, is to challenge my personal patterns of duality. Next week, I'm going to talk about what I think is the biggest addiction on the planet. And it has nothing to do with substances. It has to do with the addiction of thinking something is wrong with you. And that is a pattern of duality. I'm wrong. Something's wrong with me. I am not normal. I am not lovable. That's a pattern of duality. A pattern of duality is looking at another person, saying something's wrong with them. Now, of course, humans can have behavior that is not acceptable. I get it. But it's the difference between saying their behavior is unacceptable versus they are unacceptable. There is a huge spiritual pattern of growth and expansion and connection if we can say a person is God expressing, and all beings who are God expressing, which is all beings, sometimes do really mean things, stupid things, bad things, disconnected things. You and I are each one of those beings. Because I have not been a perfect angel my whole life. And I'm going to guess most of us haven't. We've done things to hurt each other. We've harmed other people, accidentally, sometimes on purpose. And so we find our way into compassion. And here's the thing. I was listening to the Book of Love by Paul Selig a while ago, and one thing he said that I just loved, he says, you know, when we take people and we put them out on islands of our disdain and judgment, we have this illusion that we're just putting them on the island. And we think we can maintain ourselves as, I am a perfect being of God, and they're really messed up. But the minute I put someone on that island because of quantum entanglement and oneness, I put myself on the island too. You can't do it. It's impossible to put someone on the island of that stuff and not put ourselves there either. So that's a huge motivation to say, How can I have boundaries, make choices, do what's mine to do, make a difference in the world without having to make all those people over there wrong? How can I do that? That's bridging this gap. And lastly, to bridge this gap, we have to allow ourselves to affirm our oneness over and over again. In our Beyond Limits class, Reverend Steve mentioned it in his prayer today. He basically did my talk in his prayer, but I still decided to talk to you for this long anyway. Didn't stop me. Where'd he go? I don't know where he went. He mentioned the phrase, deeply we are one. And we talk in Beyond Limits and invite people and assign people to go out into their world and to look at other people and look at situations on television, to consciously and purposely look at things and take a moment to breathe in and affirm, deeply we are one. Deeply we are one. What a beautiful practice that we can do anywhere, anytime. We are all accountable for building the world that we want to see. And it does not get built out of habits of mind and heart that are based in duality. It only gets built out of oneness. Today, I'm calling us into those practices to bridge that gap together. Please join me now with some prayer work. I invite our prayer practitioners to stand as we pray together and take this moment to just breathe in the very breath of life and feel the connection. Feel the connection of the divine presence that God is as everything and everyone. Feel that connection of the divine presence that God is pouring through each one of us right here and right now. Feel with every breath that divine power and presence that connects us all. Weaves itself through every heart in this room, weaves itself through every heart of those watching us online, weaves itself through every heart on this planet, every being. And we feel the connectedness. And indeed this morning I feel such a connectedness with all of us here now, and especially send our love and our light in that energy of quantum entanglement to our beloved friend Frosty Wooldridge, recognizing and honoring that his beloved wife, Sandy Lynn, has slipped the bonds of this earthly planet and moved into the next realm of experience. That beautiful practitioner heart that she has always been and had, and that smile and that presence, and celebrate his loving care of her, and allow each one of us to feel how beautiful it is to be loved and cherished as Frosty has cherished Sandy. That energy that he is permeating the oneness that connects us all right here and right now. We might call it human love. It is, and it is also divine love. And it blesses all of us. Oh, we are so blessed. So many other beings in this room right now, connected in love, facing great joys and great challenges and great sorrows and great upliftment. We're here together. Together we rise. Together we rise into and as the oneness that we are. Together we rise into the glory of the soul, expanding and uplifting ourselves and all of humanity. Together we rise into wholeness and beauty and light. Oh, I'm so grateful to see this and feel this, to accept this and affirm this, that we go forth from this place, walking our talk, living from that place of the connectedness of all life. Yes. I'm so grateful I release this prayer now into the law. I let it go. I let it be in absolute faith and trust. It is done. It is done. And so it is. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the Mile High Church podcast. This podcast is made possible by the generous contributions from listeners like you. To make a donation, please visit milehighchurch.org.